change. I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how it's going to begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see.
In November of 2014, there was an article titled "The Economic Endgame Explained." In it outlined what we believed would be the process by which the elite would achieve what they call the New World Order, or what they sometimes call the Global Economic Reset. As shown in detail in the past, the elite agenda includes a fiscal endgame, a prize or trophy that they hope to obtain. This prize is a completely centralized global economic structure, rooted in a single central bank for the world, the removal of the US dollar as world reserve currency, the institution of the SDR basket system, which will act as a bridge for a single global currency supplanting all others, and ultimately, global governance of this system by a mere handful of elites. The timeline for this process is unclear, but there is some indication of when the beginning of the end would commence. As noted in the globalist-owned magazine The Economist, in an article titled "Get Ready for the Phoenix," the year of 2018 seems to be the launching point for the Great Reset. This timeline is supported by the numerous measures already taken to undermine dollar dominance in international trade, as well as elevate the International Monetary Fund's SDR basket. It is clear that the globalists have deadlines they intend to meet. That said, there have been some new developments since the analysis on the endgame strategy that we think merit serious attention. The endgame continues, faster than ever before, and here are some of the indicators showing that the predictions of the globalists at The Economist in 1988 were more like self-fulfilling prophecies, and 2018 remains a primary nexus point for a re-engineering of our economic environment. As mentioned in the article, lies and distractions surrounding the petrodollar. There has been silence and often disinformation in the mainstream media when it comes to the quite open and obvious international pivot away from the dollar as the de facto purchasing mechanism for oil. This trend is only set to accelerate in 2 months as China begins fulfilling oil contracts in the yuan instead of the dollar. The problem is that even in the alternative media there is a continuing myth that Eastern nations are angling to break away from the international order. We often see the argument presented that the loss of the petrodollar can only be a good thing for the world. We wish to point out that there is absolutely no indication whatsoever that major Eastern powers like Russia and China are acting to undermine the existing globalist system. On the contrary, China and Russia remain, as ever, heavily partnered with the IMF as well as the Bank for International Settlements, and their ties to international banking monoliths like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan are long established. Eastern political and economic officials have consistently called for a new reserve system supplanting the dollar. This is true. But what so many analysts seem to overlook is that they also call for that new system to be dominated by the IMF. The delusion that the financial world operates on is that the IMF is controlled by the US. It is not. It is controlled by international bankers, who have no loyalties to any specific country. Once one understands this fact, the systematic sabotage of the US makes perfect sense, as well as the collusion between China, Russia and the IMF. America is a sacrificial appendage of the globalist edifice and is being torn down piece by piece in order to feed the creation of something new and perhaps even more sinister. As George Soros proclaimed back in 2009, the New World Order would rely in part on China as a replacement economic engine for the globalist machine and depend far less on a diminishing United States. China would serve as a smaller engine, but a replacement engine nonetheless. China is more than happy to oblige the globalists with a concerted and incremental program of de-dollarization. But this does not mean that the end goal is a petro-yuan. No. The goal is for the IMF to assert the dominance of the SDR basket system as a reserve hub. And, China is now the flagship market for the SDR after its recent induction into the fold. There will be no single reserve currency after the dollar is brutalized. At least, not until all currencies are homogenized through the SDR basket and finally replaced with a single global currency unit. Until then, the IMF or the Bank of International Settlements will dictate nation-to-nation trade and monetary exchange. It only follows that this highly volatile rebirth of the global financial order would begin in part with the dollar's loss of petrostatus. The oil trade is the one defining element that gives the dollar a fundamental edge over all other currencies. It is the closest thing we have to commodity backing for the dollar, and it is an advantage no other currency in the world can yet boast. There are many ways to destroy the dollar, but the best method would be to end its petrostatus. One argument we hear often from naysayers on global currency was that there is no monetary unit with enough liquidity to replace the dollar. Of course, these people have no understanding of the SDR basket and how it could be used to envelop and absorb most if not all currencies into a single reserve mechanism. When people think of currencies, they think of physical tickets of measurement. They want to see a piece of paper with symbols, or they want to at least see a brand name for the product, which is what all currencies really are. When The Economist in 1988 called for a global currency to launch in 2018, they were perhaps not aware of the exact form the destructor would take. Today, it is clear as crystal, the one world currency system will not only be a cashless system, but it will also be based on digital blockchain technology. As we examined in the article, the globalist one world currency will look a lot like Bitcoin. While some politicians and banking moguls publicly attack blockchain-based products like Bitcoin or Ethereum, in the background they are actually heavily invested in these systems and are even building their own. With central banking mascots like Ben Bernanke becoming keynote speakers at blockchain conferences, it is not exactly an elusive secret that the global banks love blockchain tech. Even major elitist corporations like Amazon appear ready to adopt blockchain products as currencies. So, one needs to ask the question, if the blockchain and Bitcoin are such a dire threat to the centralization of the establishment, why are they rapidly laying all the groundwork necessary for blockchain systems to replace paper currencies? What is interesting to us is that even in the highly vigilant world of alternative economics, which is well aware of the trend towards a global currency system, blockchain systems are still revered as if they will save us from central bank tyranny. Very few people have noticed that the Economist call for a 2018 One World Monetary Framework has arrived slightly early. It has been right under our noses for several years. With blockchain-based methods of exchange, a replacement structure for the dollar and all other national currencies is not very far away. You wonder what a one world currency will look like under a new world order. The answer can be found in one word: blockchain. We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expector.